G'day everyone, BH Day here. Today we'll do the in-depth review of the Dell Precision 7750. It's a 17-inch mobile workstation from Dell, and it's a monster of a computer. You can just see the pure size of this computer here. Now I'm going to go through the fan noise, temperature of the computer. I'll also look at the internals of this computer for later on in the video, so stay tuned for that. And I will also look at the touch and feel and the build quality of this computer as well. So first off, I'm going to actually go through what this computer can be configured with. So with the processor, it is a 10th generation Intel Core, and you can get anywhere between an i5 all the way to a Xeon there. And as for the RAM wise, you can actually configure these up to a maximum capacity of 128 gigs. You heard me, 128 gigs. That's a lot. And of course, it can be configured with a non-EEC RAM from the i5s all the way to the Xeons. And then you can also configure with the ECC RAM as well for the Xeons, of course. As for storage wise, it can house 4 M.2 format SSD hard drives. As for graphics wise, of course, it's got the integrated Intel graphics, but more than likely you'll be configuring it with the discrete graphics. Now, what it can be configured with is an NVIDIA Quadro T1000 or an RTX 3000 or RTX 4000 or even the RTX 5000. So you can see it's got a fair bit of graphical grunt if you need that to be configured in this computer. So definitely, I like that. As for display wise, there's not many options. It's actually only 3 options, so you can't really get confused. So 2 of them are full HD options. So the first one is a power saving display, and that has a rating of a maximum brightness of 220 nits of brightness. And the second one, which is the normal one, has a maximum rating of 500 nits of brightness, and they both don't do touch. And the third option is a UHD display or 4K resolution, and again that is rated at a maximum brightness of 500 nits of brightness, and again it doesn't have touch. And all 3 displays have an anti-glare matte finish type of look to this display, so there's no glossy version at all. Let's have a look at the ports. Starting on the right hand side, we have the full-size SD card reader, then we get the headphone jack, then we have 2 USB 3.1 Gen 1 ports. Now the one on the right have power share, and then we've got the wedge lock slot. Looking at the back of the computer, we have the mini display port. Now that's version 1.4, and then we have the HDMI port version 2.0, and then we have the RJ45 Ethernet port. Now that's a gigabit port, and then we have the DC in for the power. And looking on the left hand side of the computer, we have 2 Thunderbolt ports and a USB 3.1 Gen 1 port, and then the optional smart card reader. With the webcam, it is a 720p webcam, and there are 2 options. The first one being the RGB version, which I have right here, and the second one is the IR version. Now with the RGB version, you do have a privacy shutter there. It's a little lever on top of this display. It's about a little flick, and you'll see a physical shutter go over it, and you'll see it actually have a painted red, so you know that the shutter is over it, so you can't have it accidentally turn on. And if it is, at least something's blocking it anyway, so you don't need electrical tape or blue tack for that matter, which is fantastic. This is recording from the built-in webcam. Now this is the RGB version I've got here. So this is the video and also the audio unedited, so you can actually see what it looks like. Now I've got a bit of lights here running at the moment, and I'm actually going to turn on my key light off so you can actually see what it looks like with ambient light. Now I've got some downlights which aren't that crazy bright, so you can actually see how it performs under low light there. So I'm just going to turn that key light off so I can see how noisy if the picture does get in the way. So I definitely love to hear your comments on the quality of this webcam, so I'll put a comment below. Definitely love to hear what your thoughts are on this there. So I'm going to turn my key light back on so you can actually have a look at it. And of course, having better lighting will definitely get a better picture, of course. Let's have a look at the keyboard. Now there are a full-size keyboard here, you can see, and it has a number pad, which I really like. I really like having a number pad because I actually deal with a fair bit of numbers a lot of times, and that's really useful to have a number pad there. And else, it's got another normal full-size keyboard, and it's got a really nice sort of feel to there as well. And the surface type of the keys itself it's a bit more like a rubberized soft type of rubber there, rather than the hard flat rubber that you have there. So it's actually quite nice there. And I will actually say, well, the tactile feel, it's got got a quite nice textile feel. You can probably hear that right now as well too, so it's actually quite nice. I really do like the feel of this one there, and the spacing on the keyboard is just great there, I have to say. So you can actually really nicely type, and you don't actually have any problems with the palm. It's actually quite a large palm rest there here, so you don't have much problem there. You got plenty of room on the left side for your left palm. As for the trackpad, it looks a little bit small, but it's not. It's because proportionally compared to the monstrous keyboard and the massive palm rest, it just looks small, but it's not. It is quite large, and then it is a really nice size there, I've got to say. I've been using it, it's perfect size. You don't have it underneath your palm there when you've actually got it on your hands on the home key, and the feel of the trackpad is beautiful. It's nice and smooth. It's got a glass feel to it there. Even if you've got a moist hand, you can still quite happily glide over it as well. And plus, you've got the free mechanical button. Now, I've just found out what the middle button is really useful, especially for SolidWorks and CAD work there. As I've heard, the middle pad is very fantastic for that. I'm sorry to the previous people that I thought maybe we should lose the middle button there, but I found it's actually very useful for a lot of professional other softwares that I don't actually touch, but a lot of other people do touch who actually do buy this computer here. So it's great to see that that's also kept in mind for keeping the middle key. As for the speaker wise, when I tested out the maximum peak volume of the speakers, it measured at 85.1 decibels, so it's not really overly loud. You would be happy to actually still be able to do some presentations when you're on the go, but it's not overly loud there. As for the sound quality, even though it's on the softer side compared to a lot of other laptops there, the sound quality is not bad at all. It's got a bit of bass, and what really impressed me is the clarity of the sound, and especially when you had this on maximum peak volume there, it actually then really, you can actually hear the different layers of the different frequencies of the sound there. It's definitely defined. You can feel that the 7750 compared to the 7550, you definitely hear the noticeable difference between the 7750 and the 7550. The 7750 is way more clearer than the 7550, and it really blew me away. I didn't expect that to actually be that much more clear or even have that much more difference there, but definitely you can hear the 7750 speakers way better there, which is kind of good. But I'd still like to see Dell put in better speakers for their flagship computer there, especially making it a little bit much more louder there, especially there. That's one thing I would like to see in the 7000 series of the Precision, to actually have Dell increase the volume, and also put in some even better speakers there on the 7000 series on their flagship range. As for the build quality of the computer here, it is an all aluminium top as well as bottom here, and also for the side is a nice beautiful brush aluminium on the sides there. Beautiful there. The only thing that's really plastic is actually the hinge there, but they're actually very durable hinge, I can definitely tell you that for sure. And as of course on the inside, you've got the nice sort of rubberized sort of feel to the palm rest there. It's still plastic, but it's actually very durable there as well too. And of course, we want to actually, I know a lot of people do say, well, they're holding the computer, will it actually automatically open up? So as they're walking, I don't see. There is a little bit of opening up by itself there. So the weight of the 7750 is 3.19 kilos, and add in the power adapter is 3.96 kilos. I'd like to bring your attention to a new software which Dell has created for the Dell Precision and Latitude series for 2020. I covered this in my Dell Precision 7550 review video, but if you're joining me for the first time, I thought I might bring this to your attention as well. And what the Dell Power Manager is mostly to do with the battery life here, but what we're really interested in is this one here called thermal management. What thermal management, traditionally you actually see this can be accessed via the BIOS, but now they've actually created software which you can actually change the settings in Windows on the fly, which is fantastic. So the thermal settings here is normally set to optimize, and this is to deal with more about the fan, so the fan noise as well. And I've been told it also can unlock some of the voltages as well, but I will confirm that with Dell. But what we're really interested in is this one here called Ultra Performance, and that basically allows the fan to run its course and just go at whatever it wants to be and produce the best results for cooling. So therefore you can actually get better performance there. So This is fantastic if you're doing a lot of number crunching or doing a lot of renders, and you can actually set it to ultra performance for that period of time, and then once you finish that very heavy load task, and then you can quickly switch it back to optimize mode once you're done, just so your laptop isn't as noisy. And this can be done straight away on the fly. You actually see the results immediately. It's amazing. I love this software. When I tested out the battery life of the 7750 on the 4 different modes, in the best performance mode, I did set this power scheme to ultra performance in the power manager, and it managed to, and I put the computer on 100% load, including the GPU as well, 100% load, and managed to get an hour and 10 minutes. So that's not too bad there, and considering the screen brightness was at 100% as well. And then I changed the thermal management to optimize mode, but I kept the load to 100% with the GPU at 100%, and in better performance mode, it managed to get an hour and 30 minutes. And for the better battery life mode, I did change the load from 100% to 50% for the CPU and GPU, and it managed to get 3 hours. And in battery saving mode, I did drop the screen brightness from 100% down to 50%, and it managed to get 3 hours and 40 minutes. So these times here that I've actually tested these conditions here is with a very constant load at those percentages, and you'll probably get a little bit more because your workload will more than likely go up and down all the time, so you won't be driving the processor and GPU like I would have been doing. So these times I expect you to probably get a little bit better than that. So you can actually take this computer to a coffee shop or even do your presentation, but I do suggest you be close to some sort of PowerPoint to recharge the battery on this computer here, and that's because of the just pure size and the thermals of this computer. They're fantastic, but of course that comes at the price of the battery. When I tested out the fan noise and temperature of the 7750, of course most of the heat is where the exhaust fans are, vents at the back, which is where it should be, and also near the middle top of the keyboard, and that's unsurprising because that's where the GPU and also the CPU is sitting, but it's more closer to where the function keys rather than the middle part there. But I still did the measurements on near the middle there because that's where you mostly then touch. First off is my ambient temperature, and it was 21 degrees Celsius when I did the measurements. We are in winter here in Australia, so if you're in a more warmer climate, I expect these numbers to go up a little bit more. Now I did the very first base measurement, which was when the computer was on idle, and it managed to, hottest part was 31 degrees Celsius where near the keyboard, and it measured for the fan noise was 31 decibels, so it's pretty much quiet. And then I put the computer on 20% load, that's CPU and GPU, and that's pretty much what you'd be looking at for average office productivity work, as well as streaming the videos and surfing the web. And the center of the keyboard measured at 35 degrees Celsius, and the fan noise was 32 decibels. Then I put the computer on 50% load, and the maximum temperature was 37 degrees Celsius, and the fan noise was at 34 decibels. Then I put the computer at 100% load, and it measured at a maximum of 41 degrees Celsius, and the fan noise for the maximum was 42 decibels. Now this is all under the optimized mode in the thermal management, and for the fan noise it was mostly at 38 decibels for about 2 minutes, and then I'll ramp up to about 42 decibels for another 2 minutes, and then I'll ramp back down to 38 decibels, and it'll go in that sort of cycle there for the optimized mode. I did measure the bottom of the computer when it was at 100% load, and it measured a maximum of 41 degrees Celsius, and of course the 42 decibels for the fan noise. Did do the measurement for the computer where it was under ultra performance thermal management mode, and it measured a maximum of 39.5 degrees Celsius. So it has dropped a bit, and the fan noise read at the maximum of 44 decibels. Now that 44 decibels is consistent. It doesn't change, it just stays consistent, which is actually quite nice to the ears because it actually doesn't go up and down a lot. I kind of like more consistency there. So it is actually worth keeping it on, and then whenever your task is done, then just take it quickly on the fly, just turn it back to optimized mode. That's the fan noise. Now when it's running at its maximum at 44 decibels, The fan noise is not an annoying fan noise. It's not a high-pitched whine there. It's actually it actually sounds like a very large fan that's pushing a lot of air rather than the very high spinning sort of fan type there that really annoy other people. This one's actually quite comfortable on the ears there, I can definitely tell you that. This Precision 7750 is configured with an i7 10850H processor, and I tested this computer for any thermal throttling, and I'm pleased to say this computer does not thermal throttling. And not only does it not thermal throttling, it does very little amount of turbo throttling. I tested this computer for a very long extended period of time, and I'm very pleased to say this computer, very shockingly, has a very nice stable at staying at 4.3 gigahertz. That's pretty impressive, and that's consistently, and it doesn't really change from pretty much the first 10 seconds, and it's all the way to couple hours later on, it's still at 4.3 gigahertz. So this thermal design can do a lot of number crunching, computering, or even rendering. This is really, really stable. I'm really blown by it. I really like the thermals on the 7750 there for sure. Dell has done a fantastic job on this. We're going to test out the display if it uses PWM. Now if the screen uses PWM and you're staring for a long period of time or working on the screen for a very long period of time, it increases the probability of leading to increase of eye strain as well as headaches. On the right is the Dell Precision 7750, and on the left is the Dell Precision 7550. Now the one that we really need to worry about is this one here on the right. So easiest way for me to demonstrate the PWM test is actually through another camera, as you can see, through its display, and we're just going to increase its shutter speed. So if we see PWM, we should actually start seeing some black horizontal lines there. So I'm just going to bring that up, the shutter speed up now, and I can definitely see there's actually already some flickering here. Oh, look at that. So we do have PWM. Now this is very interesting because I don't normally see PWM moving lines going up like this here, and that's usually to do with interlacing refresh rate, but this is actually very interesting to see that. I'm just increasing the shutter speed all the way down to close to about 3,000 of a second, and we're still getting that. Now I'd like to actually hear about this, if this is PWM or not. I do suggest that this is PWM and it's just in a different phase there. So put a comment below. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. Let's have a look at the luminance or the brightness of the display. Now this one I've got here is the full HD one, and it is rated at 500 nits. So first off, I made sure in display settings I've got night light turned off in case it actually affects it. And I am using the X-Rite i1 display tool to help me do the measurement. Now the measurement that we need to take note of is this one here called current. It is measured in candela per square meter, and 1 candela per screen equals 1 nit of brightness. Now there are actually 10 increments on the keyboard for the brightness displays for the keys, and we'll go for each one of them. So first off, go to increment 0. So increment 0 is 55 nit. Increment number 1 is 79 nit. Increment number 2 is 127 nit. Increment number 3 is 176 nit. Increment number 4 is 222 nit. Increment number 5 is 271 nit. Increment number 6 is 316 nit. Increment number 7 is 363 nit. Increment number 8 is 413 nit. Increment number 9 is 450 nit. Increment number 10 at its maximum is 500 nit. So it does go to its rating of 500 nit there, which is fantastic. Now just to help the photographers and videographers, we're going to look for that 100 to 120 candela per square meter, and I'll bring that rating all the way down to 0, increment 0. I've got increment number 1, increment number 2. Increment number 2 is a bit too hot. It is sitting 127, so I'm going to dial this down. So I'm just going to zoom back out, and we'll go to the display settings. Now I'm going to fine tune this. So currently we're sitting at a value of 20. Let's bring it down to a value of 18. A value 18, we're sitting at 117 nit, which is great. And let's go to 19. Value of 19 sits at 120 to 121. So that could be where you really want to be at. So even 18 or 19 there. So 18 will be 117 candela per square meter, and 19 is 121 candela per square meter. So it might be too hot there. And so I would actually go to the value of 18 there. So you can have 117 for the brightness setting. So the screen has now been color calibrated using the X-Ray i1 display tool. So I'm going to show you what it looks like before calibration and then after calibration. So this is before, so it looks like out of factory, and then after calibration here. As well, that's a bit of a difference there. As you can see, it's actually gotten a lot more cooler there. So this is out of factory and after calibration, so it's gone a lot more cool. It's actually, I can definitely tell you that the grey looks properly grey rather than this yellowish grey. So I'm just going to go down to all the way down here. I'm going to skip a little bit to speed things up. We're going to go to look at Pascal. So this is out of factory before calibration, after calibration. It definitely looks a lot nicer after calibration there for sure. So I'm going to go to color as well. So before calibration, after calibration, definitely it's a little bit more vibrant and looks a lot better after being fixed up there. And I'm going to go down to the black and whites that you should hopefully see as well. So this is high key black and white. So it's before and after. And then mid-tone black and white, before and after. And then I'm going to go to high key as well. Low key as well, before and after. I will be sharing the color profile I created using the X-Ray i1 display tool in the link in the description below, so you can actually download that if you want to. Now, be wary, is it running off my ambient light, and it is a factor when it's in color calibration. But at least this gives you a nice starting point. Now, if you're serious about colors or working with colors, I do advise you to get your own color calibration tool. It is literally a lifesaver. Testing out the color gamut coverage of the full HD display. This is the 500 nits one. It measured in at 99.7% sRGB coverage and 79.5% Adobe RGB coverage, which isn't too bad. Let's have a look inside of the 7750. Now, first off, we need to remove the back cover, and it is held in by 8 screws here. They are Phillips head screws, so it's really easy to find a screwdriver for that, which is great. And after that, we need to pry it open. Now, I'm just going to use my daughter's Play-Doh scalpel tool here. It's been very, very handy to do this type of task. And the top tip here is actually to look for the smart card slot there, or it's even got a space saver, and you actually poke your tool in that slot there. It's easy, and then just give a nice little twist or flick it, and then you'll actually see it actually slowly give and open up very easily. And then after that, just make your way through around the sides and the corners, of course. Now, I've actually pre-undone this one here, so we can speed time up. All right, so this is the inside of the 7750. Now, first off, we can see the battery located down here. And this one here I've got is a 6-cell 95 watt-hour battery. Now, there is a 68 watt-hour battery, which is also 6-cell. Now, to actually disconnect the battery, it's this little lever down here. And I do suggest that if you're working inside the computer to disconnect the battery there. And it's just a matter of just nicely give it a little pull, and that will disconnect the battery. Now, it is held in by 3 screws. I've pre-undone them to speed things up again. And I will just lift it up so you can see what's underneath if you're really curious. There's not really much to see there. Just to open it up just for you to have a look if you are curious what's hiding behind the battery. Now, on the left hand side here, we can see 3 slots of M.2 for the SSD hard drive here, and there is actually a 4th one located right here. Now, that one's separated. It's actually probably more make it easier for you to open that up. It's a matter of just give this a nice little flick to the right, and you can actually just pry this open. I can just lift this up, and there's just a space saver there, so you can then hook it in. There's a bracket there. So this one's surprisingly different, but these ones here are just all held in by 1 screw there, which is really easy. I'm just going to pop that back through. Now, after that, you can on the right hand side, you can see 2 sol DIMM slots here. There are actually 4 in total. The other 2 are located on the other side of the main board, and Dell will use those 2 first before they actually start using these 2 for you to actually use. So this is more for the upgradability there. But if you got about more than 64 gigs RAM, then Dell will start to use this side as well. But at the moment, I've only got 32 gigs RAM, and they've used it on the other side there. Now, if you look down here, we've got the Wi-Fi card here, and then we've got a SIM card tray here, and then got a WAM card that would sit here. At the moment, I don't have any of those two options in at the moment. And then that's pretty much about it. I guess this is the processor here and the GPU located here, and then you can see the fan there. But that's pretty much all you really need to do for upgradability. One of the features I like to mention is about the screws now. Now screws here on the top is actually unthreaded, and then the bottom part half is actually threaded, so you can actually tighten or unloosen it. But you can pretty much unloosen it and then it will actually stay where it is, so you actually don't lose the screw itself when you're actually working the inside of it. So I like that last little feature there that I've actually thought about, so definitely good on you, Dell, for that. The recommended docking station for the Precision 7750 is the Dell WD-19DC. DC will actually have two Thunderbolt cables to plug into the Thunderbolt ports on the computer there. And the reason for that is basically these Thunderbolt cables can only produce about 130 watt power there, and this thing needs 240 watts, so of course one single cable is not enough, so you need two there. Now the one thing about the WD-19DC port is that it doesn't have Thunderbolt, so that's hopefully that Dell will actually one day upgrade the WD-19DC port with Thunderbolt, but you can use the WD-19TB dock here, which is what I've got in my hands. It will work with the Precision 7750, but it will actually give you an warning sign to say it's on slow charge. Now there is a little trick that I've done to fix that up, and I did that with the 7550, and that is to actually plug in the supply AC power adapter, the 240 watt power adapter, to the Precision 7750 first before you plug in the Dell WD-19TB dock. So you actually get rid of the slow charge warning sign, so the computer can run at its maximum capabilities, and then it will be able to produce the Thunderbolt ports that this WD-19TB dock can do as well. Now I wouldn't be surprised you can do that same trick there with other docks as well, that this can be plugged into as well. I did perform the benchmarks for this Dell Precision 7750. Now this one here is configured with an i7 10850H processor with 32 gigs RAM and Quadro T1000. So I'll put it up on the screen for you to see the scores. So here's the pass mark, Citybench R15 and R20, PC Mark 10, 3D Mark, Geekbench, and Spec View Pref. And also Crystal Disk Mark. I did perform the latency mod test on this Dell Precision 7750. It managed to pass the 5-minute mark, but unfortunately once it hit around about after 5 minutes, around about the 30-minute mark, it then failed. And now this seems to be consistent with all the 10th generation Intel cores. I think it's actually an Intel driver issue for the Northbridge, and hopefully Intel will fix that procedure. Just usually it should be a driver update there. Now I really like the range of the ports of this computer here. The weight of this computer, it is on the heavy side, but that's because this is a 17-inch mobile workstation. It's really to go from A to B and back there, and of course you can take it to the random coffee shop if you really needed to and do some presentation there. But for me, this is not my workflow here, but I can definitely see for some people, and I have seen these in very particular situations, usually on trolleys or for that type of purpose for medical side of things. I also see them actually in, especially for the massive screen size, for people who actually don't actually have an external screen. This is fantastic there for that. Now, as for the thermals, I'd definitely say the thermals on this is fantastic. I haven't seen another laptop that actually has better thermals than the Dell Precision 7750 so far, that is. So I definitely give kudos to Dell for that one there, and I definitely say it's got great build quality there for sure as well. The keyboard's fantastic, the actual trackpad's fantastic there. I do wish they had a little bit more screen display options there. That's what I'm hoping, and also some better speakers will be good in the next iteration, but they still do very fine, I must say that. So overall, this computer is fantastic. I do recommend it if you're actually after a 17-inch powerful workstation there, and especially you're doing some very consistent high rendering or computing there. This is definitely a very good computer there. Now, if you find this video informative and enjoyed it, give it a like, and if you haven't done it already, subscribe my channel by hitting the subscribe button bottom of my screen. I do try to upload a new video every week. And just remember, imperfections in life makes it beautiful and interesting. I'll see you next video.